Hi and welcome to this week's Three Legs Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with
Sean,
Chris,
and Lee.
We've got through 2 races at Silverstone. 2 very different races at Silverstone.
thank God.
Yeah, this week's was interesting.
I'm kind of glad they did change up the tyres, I've got to be honest.
It was kind of the shot in the arm it needed after the first 48 laps of last week.
Yes, absolutely. It was the one-stop race didn't appear to work, did it, whatsoever for everyone, actually.
I was so not hyped for this race, in the build-up and everything, and I was genuinely not looking forward to watching it, to be perfectly honest. I thought, I'm just going to spend another race on Twitter moaning about watching Formula One, and I was pleasantly surprised.
It was an alright race. There was stuff going on all the time, wasn't there? You know, up and down the field. I know some people are saying, well, there wasn't much on-track action. It was, all to do in the pits and things like that. But a lot of it was because people took early pit stops. So, tried to make that hard tyre last, really long middle stint. And it worked for some teams, and it didn't work for others at all whatsoever.
I mean, it working for Ferrari was the biggest shock, or at least one of the Ferraris.
It only worked for one Ferrari. We could talk about that. That was a telling radio message, wasn't it? That was deliberately broadcast, and we read the text of as well.
I thought it was a brilliant race because I found it so intriguing, for the whole thing. Maybe we didn't get like the passes for the lead, but to see like what we thought would be just a Mercedes romping off into the distance, to all of a sudden have like Max Verstappen there and watch Mercedes slowly lose the race. I thought it was great.
It was good. It was very entertaining.
I mean, it was a telling stat when Verstappen went into the lead, because the Mercedes had been at the front constantly this season, apart from 4 laps in Hungary.
Yeah.
And I think that was just because of pit stop sequence, wasn't it? It wasn't that genuinely someone else had led. It had just been that the Mercedes had pitted a lap or 2 earlier.
Yeah. I mean, it's put paid to the... Are Mercedes going to win every race this season? It's like, shit, they are.
No, they haven't.
They are. They are mortal. Occasionally.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we do the classic thing of starting from the rear? Should we say?
It is the way we go.
Or, as it's more and more becoming known this season, start from the Haas end.
Yes. Well, they haven't always been the last team, but this weekend.
No, as I said,
yes.
this season, definitely the slowest car.
The Haas?
I'd say so.
It's not slower than the Williams.
Grosjean said that he was pleasantly surprised by the pace.
Grosjean, who finished 16th out of 19 finishes.
Yes.
Was that right? 16th?
Yeah.
Yes, he said he was quite surprised with the pace. Quite happy with it.
He's easily pleased, isn't he?
They're paying him.
Do you think Haas are gone this next year?
No, I don't think they are, because all that Perez money is going to convince Gene Haas to have another year.
I think that's the thing. I don't think they're gone. I think the drivers are probably gone.
See, you're going to need 2 people bringing money in, because what does Perez bring in? 11 million? I know he's been
a solid amount, yeah.
Yeah,
that's about the same. That's about the same amount that Grosjean brings in. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, but I was just going to say,
Perez
11 million
less.
does not finance a Formula One team.
So Hulkenberg has said that he is in talks about something for next year as well, and presumably he would come with a solid amount of stuff as well.
I see. I'm not sure how much backing Hulkenberg's got, because that's why he lost his Force India seat, wasn't it?
Or was it not when he had his year with Williams and then he dropped out and then came back with, was it with Force India?
Yeah, and then, or maybe it was Sauber then. I can't remember. It was during when he was shifting around.
Yeah.
Because I think he was kind of in the same position that Di Resta was in, where he was bringing money in, but not quite enough money to keep a seat.
But I think he's got the potential because I mean, K-Mag doesn't bring a great deal in. Because remember a few years ago, Ron Dennis sort of shopped him around Denmark, saying, "Hey, sponsor this guy and us."
Oh yeah. But that's what I mean. I see this problem Haas has got is obviously if they replace their drivers, I think they would do a little bit better. But the car's shite. So it's if Hulkenberg was in that car, he would have still probably just been around where Magnussen and Grosjean were. And if Gene Haas came out today, was it today or yesterday, saying that he's not happy with the results that Haas are producing. So I think as soon as you've got like the guy that's bankrolling the team comes out and says that there's issues.
I mean, could we see the team changing hands and there's a little bit of an Ericsson situation where Perez's backers end up buying the team?
I don't know if they'd buy a whole team.
If they were going to do it, they'd have done it before now.
I think more likely you're looking at like the Mazepins or someone like that.
Yeah, and even then, it's such a big investment to buy a failing Formula One team. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not like you're essentially just buying the entry with Haas, because it's not like what they do. The Strolls did with Force India, buying them out, because they don't build the cars. They bought a fully functioning, working mid-grid Formula One team. It's the ideal way to get into the sport if you want to do it. But if you've no knowledge of racing, as far as running and managing and like building a team, and then you come in and buy a team which doesn't even build its own car, I don't understand the value there.
I see what you
Sounds
mean.
like a money pit.
You're either signing up to the same model that Haas have got, or you have suddenly got to find a lot of extra personnel and expertise to start building a car from out of the middle of nowhere.
Well, that's it, and it's proving as well that you're because we said this all along, didn't we? Because Haas were quite impressive when they first came out. One would say almost as impressive as what Racing Point have been this year with their model, when Haas looked remarkably like a Ferrari, and we did wonder when they started making it so you had to build more of your own parts, what they would come to, and they're clearly not doing a very good job of that side, or Dallara aren't doing a very good job of making the chassis for them.
And Ferrari aren't doing a great job of making an engine anymore either.
No.
Somebody did a measurement, didn't they? They didn't come out until after the British Grand Prix, so not the one we just had, the one before.
SilverstONE rather than SilverstWO that we had this weekend. Thank you to I can't remember who on Discord that came up with that.
Yeah. SilverstONE was Mercedes were measured GPS. They measured a 1,022 horsepower, and the Ferraris are 68 horsepower down on that.
Jesus.
Which is, whereas last year they think they had a roughly 35 to 40 horsepower advantage.
Which I meant to say this last week. The theory is that Mercedes engine power this year is all Ferrari's fault, because that's what Mercedes thought, the gap that Mercedes thought they had to make up. And as it turns out, they were taking the measurements from when Ferrari
were cheating.
But Mercedes just ploughed on and did it anyway, and all of a sudden, the difference is doubled.
It is quite scary, the pace that the Mercedes have.
Kind of serves Ferrari right, though, doesn't it? Because if you wouldn't have cheated, they wouldn't have developed that much. And
oh god, yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Because it's Brixworth, isn't it, where the Mercedes engines are built? So the Mercedes will have ploughed plenty of resources and obviously money and everything else they possibly could to making sure that they didn't have the deficit this year, at least thinking that Ferrari were going to be able to develop, and add a little bit more too. But in real terms, Ferrari have had theirs stripped away, and even still lost some with their. It's been like a backwards development move going into this year. So it makes the gap appear an awful lot bigger than it was. Compared to last year's car, Mercedes only have like a 20 horsepower advantage, which you would expect maybe Ferrari could have made up over the winter. But yeah, when you've got a 68 horsepower advantage over Ferrari, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I mean we're at the kind of gap when teams were using last year's engines as customer power units, and they were the gap. They were that was the sort of gap that they had over contemporary engines at the time.
I mean, 68 horsepower isn't much less than you would get in your average hatchback.
Well, yeah, 68 horsepower is like your bog standard Vauxhall Corsa, your Renault Clio, sort of, small, very small cars. Most of them now even have more than that. But yeah, your starter cars that you would give to people who've just passed their test.
Or in the case of your old Clio, 2 Renault Clios.
I think the Clio started off with about 72, but what is it? You reckon you lose about a horsepower a year? So
Really?
yeah, that I'm sure that's a Top Gear stat. So yeah.
So it's either wrong or it's not. But anyway, getting back to the Haas's performance, I just don't remember seeing either of them doing anything notable apart from K-Mag retiring.
K-Mag tried to wipe out Latifi and didn't do a very good job at that.
Shit, yes, I'd forgotten.
I'd forgotten about
that.
Yeah, he got a 5-second penalty for it as well, didn't he?
And which really affected the result.
Yeah,
Well, they pulled him into the garage anyway, didn't they? Retired the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of bollocksed up Latifi's aero on the left because you could see bits flying off.
Well, I don't know that they actually touched, but I think Latifi had to jump out of the way, but because he was riding the curb at the time when Magnussen decided I'm going to just not take him out, but I'm going to force you back onto the track. That I think that sharp movement maybe ripped something off of the underside of the floor. I don't know what it was, but there was definitely some debris after they made that move.
Yeah, you could see something flying off, but yeah, dick move from K-Mag when you think about it.
Totally.
Grosjean was definitely anonymous. We're not hearing him complain a lot this year. Maybe because they're just not bothering with him on the team radio because there's more interesting complaints to listen to.
This is the thing, we've heard it all before from him, haven't we?
Yeah, how many times do you want to hear the brakes have gone?
Yeah, the brakes have gone, or what's the no? I've got no power. He always says I've got no power when he's actually got no power.
I think we've said all the best we can about Haas.
Yes, they took part.
Yeah. Right, Williams next. Again, good on Saturday, down on Sunday.
It's amazing, isn't it? Carter can have so much single lap pace and then just lose it all on a Sunday.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, George Russell, 12th at one point during Q1, ended up qualifying 15th. Although that might have been because he was blocked by Ocon. And then Latifi, close to getting into Q2. He wasn't exactly a million miles off. And then they go finish 18th and 19th.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? See, I think Russell's qualifying might just be the fact that he can throw a lap together. I think he's got a car which doesn't want to spit him off the track every 10 minutes now, and it's made it so he can just wring the neck out of it for a single hot lap.
Yeah, but when it comes to the Sunday and they've got management to do, etc., the car is it's underdeveloped, but it's not as bad. We've said it before. We're repeating ourselves week after week here, but it's not as bad as last year's car.
No, it's not. It's definitely not as bad as last year's car.
And we all know how difficult it is to make a Formula One car these days.
I'm worried for Russell though.
Didn't he have an extra pit stop because the car was even harder on the tyres than everybody else?
All the Mercedes powered cars were. This is maybe the issue with having such a powerful engine. It just shredded the shit out of its tyres. For all three of the Mercedes powered teams, they all ended lower than they started. And
the problems fairly rear limited as well, weren't they? So it would suggest
too
it was
much
traction.
Power.
Yeah, too much grunt coming out of the engine, and even the smallest bit of tyre slippage. So, I mean, with the Silverstone track surface itself, it's pretty unforgiving, and that's why they always use, obviously, they've always used in the past, the hardest available compounds. Because, I mean, what was it, 2 years ago they made the ultra hards because they thought they might need to use them?
Hard?
Was it super hard?
So I don't think we
Yeah.
ever actually
Yeah.
saw properly on a track, did we? But they existed just in case.
Mm.
They have
don't think-
resurfaced Silverstone since then because it kept upsetting the bikes, but I don't think it's necessarily been shown to be any easier on the tyres.
Yeah, but they had to resurface it after the resurfacing because the first one went wrong and it wasn't actually draining, and they had to abandon the British round of MotoGP because the track was flooded.
Oops.
Because they'd put all that new tarmac down and all the water couldn't go, well, anywhere.
That'll happen.
But yeah, I mean, Williams on a Saturday, far in advance of what they're doing on a Sunday. But I mean, it's good to be able to talk about a Williams being in Q2.
Yeah, it is.
It's great and getting there, but if they're not providing him the car to then at least try and move forward or stay where he is, then what's the fucking point?
I mean, look at it this way. This time last year, we were always talking about Williams first. This time, we're talking about them second and being disappointed in what they've done.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I worry that George Russell might be headed down a Martin Brundle path rather than a Lewis Hamilton path in his career.
So promising, but just the sea isn't opening up.
Yeah. I mean, because people can joke about Brundle crashing and stuff like that, but the fact that he's won everything he's done, he's won everything he's done. He'd beaten Senna in lower formulas. He's essentially a lost world champion, Martin Brundle, in my eyes.
I have a book on Ayrton Senna, and a lot of it is written from the perspective of Martin Brundle as a racing rival during those early 80s, and in cars that were comparatively similar to each other. They weren't identical. This wasn't like a spec formula, but in cars that were comparatively identical, not identical, similar.
Almost
Brundle
unique.
Brundle was able to race Senna. Fair enough. He throws his hands up and says, "Look, I lost out more than I won, but I was able to race him. He was always going to be, something really, really special." And he was, but Martin Brundle just wasn't, because as you say, the sea never opened. What was Brundle's biggest drive was probably replacing Senna at McLaren.
Yeah, and when it was a dog of a McLaren.
Just as McLaren turned to crap.
Yeah.
They just got rid of the Ford and went to Peugeot, and I think it was the year before they got Mercedes engines. Mm-hmm. And the Peugeot was a stopgap for a year, and that was the year that Brundle raced for McLaren. Brundle was apparently in line to take the Williams seat in '92, but Nigel Mansell changed his mind, so 91 and '92, but then Nigel Mansell changed his mind, and he ended up getting the seat.
That would have been his World Championship year, wouldn't it?
92 was Mansell's championship year. Yeah, the 91 was the beginning of the super technological Williams. It took them a year to get their head around it. 92 was the year they blew everyone away. Mansell won the championship by Hungary, and I think he won like 8 out of the 16 races or 9 out of the 16 races that year. Something ridiculous.
Wow.
And that, that could have been Brundle, but yeah, I see what you mean about him being an early thing. I was concerned at one point you were about to say he was going to go down the Stoffel route because the results are looking similar.
No, because it's I think Russell's got the talent to do it. If Russell had been given the opportunity Stoffel had, I don't think we'd be having this problem. It's because Stoffel had a much better car than Russell's got. So yeah, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. I think we'd be having a.
Don't forget, it was the best chassis on the grid, wasn't it? Just with a GP2 engine.
But but Stoffel had a decent. He had a year of a semi-good McLaren, didn't he? Where they were at least scoring points.
Well, one of them was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was Alonso was getting the favor. We know now, don't we, that Alonso was getting the favourable parts. He was getting a lot.
Do we know it? Do we? I see. I still find that story just Stoffel being a bit Stoffely because his Formula One career fucking went to tatters.
It didn't come from Stoffel, did it? It came from I want to say motorsport.com. That all of the upgrades went to Alonso first, and if they worked, Stoffel got them a couple of races later, and if they didn't,
But you'd expect that, as in any team, like most teams have a favoured driver.
yeah, that's true. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Van Dorn probably his time at McLaren was probably up, but I would like to have seen him in another car in Formula One. But he went to Formula E, and we all saw what happened there this weekend.
Well, everyone still likes him because he gets fan boost at every race.
Oh yeah, he seems like a nice guy, but it's just he just didn't do it. But I mean, there is a comparison between him and George Russell if you want to go down that route, because just like George Russell, he ripped GP2 apart, and we thought he was going to come into Formula One and do the same thing.
I mean, I guess George Russell was never expected to come into Formula One with as many expectations as Stoffel, because he was joining a team that were in a pretty bad position. McLaren were always going to be, don't look for us at the start of the season, look for us at the end. Yeah,
and the other thing is regardless of parts and stuff like that, apart from maybe being Max Verstappen's teammate, I think the toughest teammate to have would be Fernando Alonso.
Probably, yeah.
Even more than Lewis Hamilton. And don't get me wrong, Lewis Hamilton would be a tough teammate to have, but Alonso's just fucking relentless. He's absolutely relentless as far as race pace goes.
But we were talking about Williams.
And the other reason, of course, that you don't like Stoffel is he took Jensen's seat.
No, it doesn't bother me that. I'm not one of those people. But no, McLaren made there. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't have wanted Jensen to stay in, because it was so horrible watching, like Fernando. It was so horrible watching two world champions being given that car week in, week out.
It was a tough watch, but going back to Williams, just a bad race for both of them. I mean, Latifi was the last of the finishers, and his pace just dropped off. He was looking a little speedy at first, and just couldn't really capitalise on it. And again, I think that may have come out of the tyres, and Sean said something to do with the engine, putting too much pressure on the tyres. Right, Alpha next.
Trying to remember what they did.
Yeah, Giovinazzi in 17th and Kimi in 15th after qualifying last.
Yeah, the 70th, everybody heard the stat, didn't they? That at the very first Grand Prix, it was 1, 2, 3, 4 on the grid. And then in the 70th anniversary, Alfa Romeo line up on the back row. So, I mean, in that respect, they did okay, I guess, getting past the Williamses and a Haas. Raikkonen got past both Haases. Yeah, that's not easy to say. But yeah, just they're totally anonymous, aren't they? They're becoming anonymous Sauber again.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming clear that Kimi really doesn't like the car.
I mean, I don't think either of them seem to be getting on particularly well with it.
I think Giovinazzi, because his career depends on it, is being a little bit more upbeat and polite about it, but Kimi just has a vibe of, why the hell am I here?
Yeah. We thought rebadging Alfa Romeo, the Ferrari tie-in, we thought that was going to lead to Alfa Romeo being like up where the fucking Racing Point is, possibly. And it's not, is it?
I think the problem is Ferrari have gone to shit, so any tie-in,
absolutely,
it's not as much of a benefit as if you got a tie-in with Mercedes.
Correct.
I think this is Kimi's last year. I think he'll retire after this.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I think he's going to go and drive speedboats and snowmobiles. And,
Why the fuck not?
Yeah, teach his kid how to ride a motorbike.
The kid has a cart already. The kid is karting.
Oh, he'll get the kid on 2 wheels before his 7th birthday. We'll see him in the Talent Cup.
No, child Raikkonen is destined for the karts.
Yeah. That's what I think as well. Because if you follow him on Instagram, he's constantly posting pictures of him with his son doing the karting thing, and that's like it seems to be a good replacement for a Formula One driver. That doesn't it?
I think that's why we see so many of like the familiar surnames at the moment in F2 and F3.
Delatraz, Alesi, Schumacher, and then in Formula One, Magnussen, Verstappen.
Who else have you got? There's PK. There's a few of them. There's a couple of Fittipaldis kicking around still.
About 90 Fittipaldis.
There's still more to come as well. He has got a production line.
There's got to be another Andretti at some point.
Probably.
Oh, there's
sounds about right.
Yeah, there's a factory in New Jersey churns one out every 3/4 of an hour, and none of them win the Indy 500.
I mean, there's even a Doohan.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
The boy
Yeah,
Doohan.
there is. Yeah.
Don't Red Bull own him?
Yes.
Struth. But yeah, it's Alpha. It's Sauber in a different colour.
Alfa Romeo for sale, by the way, if anyone wants one. I've got one for sale.
Is this the one that's not on the road so often?
Bring your own tow rope.
You finally given up on it then?
Yeah, I have to. It's completely useless.
You're really pitching it here.
I don't give a shit. I just want rid of it.
One careful owner, because you fucking have to be. It's an Alpha.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Shall we do McLaren next?
Yeah.
Yeah, Carlos in 13th. What happened?
He didn't have good qualifying either, did they? I think they fell into the trap that everyone else did with because the soft tyres that were available this weekend weren't even good for one flying lap. You couldn't do a fast warm-up lap and then do a flying lap. You had to do a really slow warm-up lap, and then you had to decide which sectors you wanted your tyre to be alive in. Did you want to attack the first sector and maybe lose a little bit of grip in the last sector? Or did you want to save them a bit in the first sector and attack the last sector? That seemed to be the two ways that people did it who went for the softs. McLaren just fell into that trap. I think Sainz started on the hards and just wasn't able to make them work. I think the tyres, instead of giving us they gave us another spicy race this week, but it was because the teams didn't really know how to handle them. And the ones who did manage to handle them came out on top.
Sainz also lost a couple of places when he had shitty pit stop. One of the wheel guns did not work.
And then he stopped just outside the box because there was other cars
Someone was coming in who shouldn't have been there because he should have been gone like 2 seconds earlier. And yeah, it was a bit of a clusterfuck.
And Lando was actually fairly happy with P9 because he thought that car was just going to drop out of the points.
Yeah.
Again, he seemed to be struggling with the tyres at some points during the middle of the race. But one thing I did notice from Lando, I don't think he had too bad a start this time.
No, he's very cautious, isn't he, at the starts, Lando? Be interesting to see if he ever gets in a car that can qualify like front row, whether he's still as cautious.
He was on the hards though, wasn't he?
No, he started on the mediums.
Oh, was he on the mediums, was he?
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah.
I think, was it only Verstappen in the top 10 that was on the hards?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, all the rest of the top 10 were on mediums. One thing though,
I just don't think. Sorry to put in just quickly on the Lando thing. I just don't think that McLaren's as good as we thought it was.
I think it wasn't very good on these tyres at all. Much like,
or Silverstone, it just wasn't there for Silverstone.
It was all right last week. It was just this week with the tyres, they just didn't handle the tyres well at all. Much like the Mercedes.
Where did they finish last weekend?
Fifth and well, Sainz had a blowout, so
Yeah,
he was running.
Sainz would have been fourth if he hadn't had that blowout.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So Sainz was fourth, Norris was sixth, and I think he inherited. Oh no, Sainz was Norris would have been seventh, wouldn't he? Because he inherited Bottas and Sainz's places as well. So yeah, it would have been fourth and seventh, but then it was fifth and like I don't know, 15th or something.
But did we lost a racing point though, and Stroll didn't seem to be there, because that's the thing. I mean is I think regardless of that, I think the racing point's a better car.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So you can let's if I know it
but then
makes
they're a team that didn't make it work for them last week at all. But then this week they're all right, double points finish.
Yeah,
They lost positions though from where they started.
They did, yeah, they did.
Yeah, Hulk doubly so.
But I think that Renault is a better car than we thought it was, and I don't think the McLaren is as good as we thought it was.
The Renault that finished one place ahead of one McLaren and one place behind the other one.
No, but
Not necessarily this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, but even the like the qualifying Ricardo put in, he had that spin, didn't he? Which did you hear in the interview where he referred to? He said, "I had a Seb spin."
Oh,
Amazing.
So no, I don't think we're giving Renault enough credit, because they were off the pace last year and they've clearly found something this year.
There might be a little bit as well of McLaren arrived ready and everyone else has maybe taken a couple of races just to sort of get going. Yeah. So it might be that McLaren have just been caught very quickly.
Yeah, I think it doesn't. Maybe it didn't show with Renault immediately either, because they had a really torrid test, didn't they? It was only like the last half a day with Ricardo where they all of a sudden they started showing some pace.
Well, what was it? The first test, I think 75% of the car was last year's.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
so they were on their back foot immediately. But I think it whatever they're doing, like I say, I don't think they're getting enough credit for it.
Yeah, true. I mean, one thing where Sainz was lucky that he didn't get taken out by Vettel on the opening lap.
Yeah, very lucky.
You know, expert recovery from Seb, kind of. Then before he lost it again.
Well, he's got a lot of practice, hasn't he?
No, that is true. But we'll get to that in a minute. It is Renault next, actually. Ocon in 8th and Ricciardo in 14th. Danny was on for a decent finish, and then the tyres just left.
And he had that spin, didn't he, which kind of took him off the back of the midfield train.
That was the big problem. I mean, it was obvious what had happened. He just tried to put the power down a bit too early, like when he was on the outside of Sainz, because you could see Sainz had him, I think, and he was desperate, because if I believe if he'd have got next to him, then he'd have had the inside, wouldn't he, for the next turn? And I think he was trying to make sure he had the inside for the next turn, and it all went fucking pear-shaped.
It was kind of perfect storm, really. Dirty part of the track, knackered tyres, and a hotter than expected racing surface.
Yeah,
you know, you're not going to get any grip whatsoever there. You know, you're effectively trying to make a pass on molten rubber, or skating on top of more molten rubber.
Yeah,
basically,
not ideal.
Yeah,
but decent showing from Ocon in the end after his qualifying woes.
No, he was trash in qualifying, totally terrible. It looked like almost the most binary result for Renault. Given that the car's starting to, as Lee just said, the car's starting to come together and they're starting to be a bit more competitive. It looked like Ocon didn't have a clue what he was doing in qualifying, but then obviously in the race he pulled it back. So fair play to him.
But no, I do see what you mean. Like, yeah, pardon me.
No.
But I do see what you mean about the Renault looking good, and I think it is a development thing that they've had a chance to actually get something together now. Because testing they looked a little bit better than they did last year because it was enhancements on last year's car. But now we're actually seeing the real thing, and it is becoming more of a straight three-way fight for the midfield. Well, four-way if you include Ferrari, depending on.
Yeah. Oh, so do we put do we still put Racing Point in the midfield? You know,
I think that sort of towards they've got towards the front of that battle, but it's now there's four teams vying for third to seventh.
Yeah, it's pretty close, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, 'cause, I mean, like Sean said, Racing Point weren't on it last week. We're on it this week.
Well, if you look at the running order, I put McLaren and then Renault, but arguably you could have swapped those two around, maybe possibly because one of them did better than the other one. But then when you look at the next team, only one of them score a point. They were literally sandwiched between the McLarens and the Renaults.
There's not a lot in it at all, is there? In that neck of the woods.
And these guys were, were not expected to be anywhere near the top end of the midfield. Yet there they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, good showing from AlphaTauri. Tauri.
AlphaTauri, Sky is still calling them AlphaTauri. I wish they wouldn't.
They made a point. The first race of the season.
All I think of is Boris Johnson.
The first race of the season, they made a point of asking them, "How are we saying it?" And as soon as they said, AlphaTauri, right? So AlphaTauri.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the Giovinazzi debate all over again, isn't it? He put his own video out saying it's Antonio Giovinazzi, and then everybody still calls him Giovinazzi. It's like, oh, right, okay, yeah, crack on then.
Yeah, I mean, the other one, do you pronounce it Kimoa or overpriced?
The Indy 500 range is available.
I want to see how much the Kimoa Renault range is next year and how many kidneys it is per hat. Anyway, on to the other expensive clothing manufacturer on the grid.
Yeah, AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
Not a bad showing.
Yeah, they're surprising this season.
Gasly was having a really good race, but do I remember rightly, he had to make a late pit stop because his tyres were gone.
I don't know if it was late or it was too sort of in quite quick succession midway through the race, maybe.
I want to say he changed. He started on the hards and then changed to the mediums and they didn't work and he had to go back onto the hards earlier than was expected.
Possibly. But there was definitely some kind of these tyres aren't working, let's get them off quick issue.
I think a lot of teams ended up using the mediums as the sort of this is the compulsory pit stop.
Yeah, but everybody's sort of saying, how well Gasly did and how was he fighting. Danny Kvyat finished one place ahead of him.
Yeah.
Very sort of quietly just went about it as well, Kvyat. I don't remember seeing him particularly, but there he is in the points.
Yeah, didn't do anything.
Torpedo himself.
Yeah, didn't do anything Kvyat-y. I mean, at least they found out what the problem was with last week, and it was an overheating wheel rim, which
it melted itself.
Yeah, which is a little bit concerning.
Yeah. A wheel rim. So was that like a stuck bearing or something? Or?
I imagine so.
It can't just be the rim. Just wouldn't
something
get hot
chafing
by itself.
somewhere. Yeah.
Or I don't know. Really bad heat transfer from the brakes.
That might be one for Matt Steele to answer if he's listening. Might switch over to the Discord chat, see if he responds.
Is he on there tonight? No,
I don't know.
No, he's not. Oh well.
Okay.
Question for a later point.
Yes. But yeah, the car looks good. The drivers aren't looking as fearful for their lives as you've come to get used to.
That's because there's no one to replace them.
That's the thing. I think they've got at least one free year.
Although we did see Helmut Marko on the phone, didn't we? Yeah, on his Nokia phone.
On a Nokia, good lord.
Good grief.
Yeah.
I mean,
Helmut Marko on a Nokia, wearing his mask underneath his nose.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go tell him he's doing it wrong?
Might just point it out to him.
And then run away very quickly.
At his bad side.
He will probably have been happy this week, though, because Yuki Tsunoda with a race win in the F2, so that will have pleased him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when are they going to put Tsunoda in the...
Year after next, I think, would be earliest for him.
So next year, because it's going to be too early and then destroy his career.
No, but
that sounds like a Red Bull move.
he's not technically he's Red Bull Junior program, but his backing is all Honda. So they've got to
Right.
keep Honda happy.
So if Honda say no, then there's a chance that they might not screw him up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can but dream. I did see Helmut Marko on the grid talking very animatedly to Franz Tost, and I made a joke about he's probably telling him who's going to be driving for him next week, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, no danger of that at the moment, is there? You know, the drivers are kind of in the positions you'd expect them to be. But I mean, a good showing from AlphaTauri. I thought it was you know, they don't get much of a mention on this podcast for being a sort of decent midfield team, but they had a decent midfield showing, a difficult race where, you know, management was difficult. They managed to keep the pace up.
Yeah,
Trying to say the race was difficult.
I think it might have been. I think he's alluding to it being a little bit tricky. I'm not entirely sure what you caught out of that. I mean, we've not talked about him being a decent midfield team since Sainz was driving for him in the he just got on with it and somehow he was sixth phase.
Yeah, I think the last time that they were really sort of contenders would have been the Verstappen and Carlos era, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When they finally managed to stop them fighting and arguing with each other mid race. Right, next, Ferrari.
Oh, good.
How binary do you want?
Yikes! Yikes!
In the words of Salt and Pepper, Spinderella cut it up one time.
What's going on?
Yeah. Well, Vettel, his turn one spin, it was totally by himself, wasn't it? He had a wobble and then he spun. I thought maybe somebody had tagged him, and I thought, well, let's not be too harsh. You know, somebody probably tagged him into turn one or something. Nope, he just went around all by himself. Nobody anywhere near him. And then he had that radio message, didn't he, for Ferrari, which, okay, he was down that far because of his spin, but he made his way back through quite well before his first stop, and then he had to say something. He said something, what was it, like, you know you've messed up.
Yeah, it was like I said, I didn't want to be in this position, and you've put me in this position.
We spoke about this morning. Yeah. You know you've messed up.
Do you know what? I think we need Dan back, and I think we need to do Sad Seb.
Sad Sebastian.
If we can find enough radio, I'm going to try and convince Dan to record a Sad Seb.
If we haven't got enough yet, I reckon give it a race or two, and there'll be a solid amount.
So, so what do we think then? What's going on? Like, I'm still of the opinion that Vettel can turn this around, but just not at Ferrari.
Well, he's checked out for this season.
Totally, yeah, I think so. I've got a theory passed on to me by a listener, which I can't stop going over because it makes sense. Either the Ferrari is, if the Ferrari is terrible, then Charles Leclerc is pretty good.
Yeah.
Charles Leclerc was so excited to be fourth, wasn't he?
I know,
fourth.
Yeah, totally. And if the Ferrari is actually okay, what the fuck has happened to Sebastian Vettel?
Don't know. There's a little bit of me thinks like maybe it's not savable. Maybe he can't fix his career, and maybe the issues that we've seen Vettel having are just the continued issues he's had since the hybrid era's come in. And we've seen it in the past. We've seen it where some drivers, Formula One comes to them. I think you could argue right now Formula One has come to Lewis Hamilton more than it ever has done. But we always think of, say, Jenson Button as being like his qualifying wasn't his strong suit towards the end, and even his championship year and just after it. So you tend to think of him as having iffy qualifying sessions. But if you take a time machine back to the groove tyres, where it was all about keeping the tyres cool on the outlap so they still had grip for hot lap, like he was sticking that BAR up into like second, and splitting the Ferraris and qualifying.
Yeah, way back in one-shot qualifying.
Yeah. It really came to him with those groove tyres, like qualifying really came to him, and racing did because he was able to manage them better than the people that are around him. I think this is something people forget sometimes about Formula One is sometimes it's not necessarily just about talent. It's about whose driving style said rules like adapt to better. I think that's what's going to be interesting when we get the big rule changes, is to see who it is that moves towards.
Yeah.
Well, at the moment, that looks and sounds like he wants to be somewhere else completely.
I think he might walk before the end of the year.
That will put Ferrari in a really interesting position because their official reserve driver is Antonio Giovinazzi.
Hulk will be wearing red.
Yeah, but then
Is Hulk just the fill-in driver for everyone now?
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, Schumacher broke his leg, and Luca Badoer was the reserve driver, so they got Mika Salo in.
Yeah. Well, look how well Luca Badoer did when did Ferrari need?
When
a
Massa
reserve?
got injured.
When Massa got injured, yeah, that's right. When Massa got injured, and then Luca Badoer raced at Valencia and was the worst, just the worst.
Just the worst, that's fine.
Well,
Yeah,
Ferrari said, and I think this is complete spin after the race, but they gave him those 2 races as a reward for his loyalty for being the reserve driver for the last 10 years and not getting in the car.
But that's not the point of your reserve driver. Your reserve driver should be the person who races when one of your actual drivers can't, not just someone who happens to be at the factory.
And then they saw an Italian do something shit hot in a really shitty car. And,
There's one.
yeah, Fisichella was barely over the line and the ink was wet on the Ferrari contract.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So, it's for me. I think you'd probably be looking at. I don't know if Giovinazzi would move up to Ferrari. I don't know if they'd ask Kimi to just step up just till the end of the season and put Kubica in the other Alfa Romeo.
I think now that Hulk's proved himself that he can still race and he can get to grips with this year's car. I think he would be the best move for him.
I think
Kimi could easily turn around and say no. He's apparently he's not under contract with Ferrari at all.
I don't
Well, no,
think
he's not.
I don't
Hulk
think
wasn't
Hulk
under
could get-
contract with Racing Point, was he?
He wasn't under
No.
contract with anyone.
I don't think Hulk will get called up because I've got a theory about Hulk that I'll speak about later. Not for Ferrari.
Get your tinfoil out. But yeah, I mean that's Vettel. That was a nightmare. Leclerc 4th.
Yeah, good tyre management stuff there.
Yeah, fantastic tyre management.
One-
Managed to
one
make
stop.
Those last, was it 37 laps?
Yeah, we were all waiting for him to make the second stop, and it just never came, and the pace didn't drop off.
I think he did kind of drop back a little bit towards the end, didn't he? But it was after the Mercedes had made their second stops, and I think it was kind of obvious at that point he wasn't catching, so it's a case of, well, you might as well just make sure you get there.
Yeah, it was sort of hanging on. Well, he wasn't hanging on to 5th. He was comfortably in 5th. He wasn't going to catch Hulk ahead of him, and Stroll wasn't going to catch him.
No, I don't think Stroll...
Sorry, Albon. Albon wasn't going to catch him.
No, but I don't think at that point... I don't think Hulk was ahead of him.
No, I don't think he was. I think he was behind anyway. But Hulk was in 5th, wasn't he? And
Yeah.
Leclerc
It was 5th.
Hulk in
Yeah.
5th, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
he wasn't going to catch anyone, and he wasn't going to be caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't fight Hamilton when Hamilton was coming through on those fresh tyres. He knew that he was literally damage limitation. He wasn't trying to get that car onto the podium. He was just trying to get it over the line in the highest possible position he could, which just happened to be 4th. So if the Ferrari is as bad as we think it might be to make a 4-time world champion look really ordinary, then Charles Leclerc must be fucking brilliant.
I think what we've seen with Leclerc in the last few years is that he does adapt to a new car very well. Like in F2, he was instantly the championship front runner, even though he'd just come up from GP3, as it would have been then. And I think he said when he was in Sauber in his rookie year, I think it took him about 2-3 races, and he was like, actually, no, this is a different car. I need to adjust my driving style. I think that is one of his his selling points is that he can quite quickly realise what he needs to do to drive a car.
Yeah,
I
'cause when he was.
think this was his most impressive race.
Good lord.
Yeah, I think so.
A compliment.
Because I can't take the other ones because now it turns out that he was in a car which was completely illegal last
Fair
year.
enough, yeah.
But it's I think you've got to take that into consideration. But yeah, I think this was Charles Leclerc's best race.
I don't know how illegal the car was in Bahrain last year.
Well,
Broke though,
it
didn't
was-
it?
it broke, but it
Yeah.
was really, really fast. And that seems to be Ferrari's problem now.
Well, now it doesn't. Well, it doesn't break itself, and it's not really, really fast.
Yeah, so I think they were. Not only were they running that car like that last year, we don't even know how long they were running it like that for.
No.
No.
That's why I think the FIA had to just be like, look, just don't do it again, and we won't punish you. Just shut up and get on with it, and just be slow for a year.
And then Ferrari said you're not allowed to tell anyone why you're punishing us. I still think that's one of the shadiest Ferrariest moves they've ever pulled off.
Totally. I think one of the shadiest Ferrari moves they pulled off was when they protested the Racing Point thing as well, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah, that's one to cover after the race. It is Racing Point now.
Ooh.
Right.
Now, Hulkenberg apparently had a bad vibration towards the end of the race.
He
which
was
is why they
picking up
pitted
the
him for
bad
softs.
vibrations.
Do we believe it?
No.
I don't.
No.
Do we think the family Stroll have a thing in that car that can cause a bad vibration in case stand-in boy looks like he's about to beat the team principal
Old
or team
child.
owner's son? Yeah.
It may. Well, I don't think it was just that, right? Because oddly enough, I just when I was swooping through Twitter before, I just saw Perez has said he's 99% sure he'll be back for the Spanish Grand Prix. It was the right thing to do for Racing Point, because if Hulkenberg had come in, out-qualified and out-raced their race driver, it makes Lance look stupid. And on the other side of it, they give away points to a driver that's probably not going to drive again this year.
And if they are about to replace Perez, that doesn't look good for them that they're replacing the better driver.
But I just think for the championship like table, it made more sense to maximize Stroll's points than it did for them to maximize Hulkenberg.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it that way, it got Stroll an extra place.
Yeah.
And yeah, all right. They lost out on constructors' points, but they'd already lost constructors' points this weekend before the race started. Anyway,
Did they? Where was Hulkenberg going to land? Was he going to land fifth?
He'd have been fifth.
it was going to be fifth. It was going to be fifth and seventh, and it turned out to be sixth and seventh.
Yeah. So they lost a couple of points, but they kept their driver a bit further up in the standings. That's where I think it was for.
But shenanigans aside, Hulkenberg, that was the best advert for him that he's done.
I think he's going to replace Albon next year.
I think he's going to have a seat alongside Sergio Perez next year at Haas.
This is my thought also.
I think so too.
Maybe. I think they will ditch Albon and put a more experienced driver in the car that might have a bit more pace, because I don't think Max Verstappen, even if you just look at him as de facto number one driver, I don't think Max Verstappen can win a world championship with Albon as teammate. I think they need another driver to split the Mercedes, and Albon doesn't seem to be capable of mixing with the Mercedes.
I think the problem is with Red Bull. What they actually want is Max Verstappen and another slightly more subservient Max Verstappen.
They need a Bottas.
They want someone that can stay within 30 seconds of their number one driver. That's
No, they want somebody with exactly the same driving style as Max who can drive a car that's been built for Max. Like Max, but not quite as fast.
They've never needed it before. They've never needed somebody to be like the twin of their number one driver. I think they can work another driver in. And don't get me wrong, Albon had a cracking race to come back to where he did. But the problem was, it was another Albon comeback race, and he shouldn't be in that position. When you've got a driver there, when you've got a guy that's just chasing the Mercedes down and putting them out of position, he doesn't need to be like pushing Max Verstappen. He just needs to be behind him.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying, I'm talking actual, this isn't just sort of Twitter gossip, this is, or people on Twitter complaining. There's a fair few actually respected proper F1 journalists saying it does look like the problem that Albon's having is he can't get his head round the way that the car works with his driving style, because it has been designed to react to what Max does and how he works things.
But you're going to have that, though. Yeah, and don't forget, it didn't happen last year. Do you know what I mean?
Was last year's car so specifically designed for Max?
I don't know, and I don't forget.
I mean, Gasly couldn't deal with last year's car or the pressure.
No, but that's why I think I don't necessarily think it's so much the car. I think it's the pressure that Albon's cracking under.
I think last year's car as well would have had a little bit of Ricardo data within it from the year before, and I think Albon does seem to be someone who will go for an overtake and likes to push, which is probably more Ricardo-esque than, say, a Gasly.
Is this Albon's second year in Formula One?
Yes.
Right. So I just don't think he's got the experience to be where he is.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was in that car after, 7 races?
Yeah. It's because don't forget, I don't necessarily think it's the fact that Red Bull have just gone out and out to build a car for Max Verstappen. But when you've got a guy which is completely green into Formula One, how do you get data off them to help build the car? You go with the experienced guy. I don't necessarily think it's it's Red Bull treating this car for King Max at all. But like I said, that race, if you'd have stuck with the problems Mercedes had, but if you'd have had back when you had a Ricciardo in the second car, or if you had a Mark Webber in the car, that would have been a Red Bull 1-2.
Are we doing Red Bull now?
Well, they're not the final team to talk about, but we were talking about
we were
racing.
still on Racing Point because we hadn't we hadn't talked about Stroll.
Mm-hmm.
In fairness, I can't remember Stroll massively.
He drove the car around.
He was there.
He drove the car around slightly slower than it can probably go.
Q3 again, finished 6th. Should have been 7th.
Yeah.
Should have been 7th.
For me, Silverstone has pointed out that Stroll is no better than he was before. He's just got a better car.
I'm beginning to think like that, but let's see what happens in Belgium.
We seem to change our opinion on Stroll a lot. He's a difficult person to sort of pinpoint exactly what's going on with him, really, isn't he?
It's only because we're into the drivers' circuits for me. We've seen this time and time again now with Stroll, is that the more technical the track, with the more difficult the corners, is the slower the Stroll.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, early season, given him a good car, seemed to, make him an okay driver. He's probably an average driver in a really good car. Proven by the fact that Nico Hülkenberg, in, let's be honest, 6 sessions actually on the track, was able to out-qualify him. And also, he put himself third, Nico Hülkenberg, on the grid. That's why that car should probably have qualified. And then in the race, let's be honest, Hülkenberg outraced Stroll, vibration or no vibration. There was nothing to be done there. Hülkenberg was out and ahead of Stroll for a majority of that race.
So Hülkenberg's a better driver, and Racing Point shouldn't be getting rid of Perez if they're signing Vettel.
Well, I'd just like to point out and I think I pointed it out on the Discord when we were watching the race yesterday. Look at Renault, and we said that Ocon did well to finish 8th. He replaced Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg, even with his pit stop, finished 7th. Oops, I think Renault might have fucked up a little bit.
I think Renault fucked up a bit.
I think Renault had very little choice because I think they were getting pressure from the French government, who partly owned them, to get a French driver in.
Yeah, they could have been that as well.
Maybe. Either way, all they did was prove me right again.
I don't think it's the case that Ocon shouldn't be in F1. I think he's a decent mid-pack driver.
Again, he's miles away from his teammate. You know, when you actually look in raw pace, when everything's equal, he's miles away.
Yeah, but Ricciardo is kind of on a different level to a lot of the drivers that he's going to be fighting with in that Renault, because
It's a fucking works team. They should be both that caliber of driver.
Renault sold Ricciardo a dud. You know, they he wouldn't have signed for him if they hadn't said how great it was going to be last season.
Wasn't it this year they were meant to be challenging for title?
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But that was all part of the plan, and
good plan.
Built a lemon.
A good plan. Yeah, good plan. I think they're essentially back now to where they were when Hülkenberg was in the car, aren't they?
When they had Hulk and Signs.
Yeah, and that's the reason why Ricciardo went there in the first place, is because he saw what was going on. So it's all right. We'll have to see whose luck is worse next year, whether it's Ricciardo's or Alonso's. They're trying to outlook each other.
No, I think it's Sainz going to Ferrari.
Oh yeah, Sainz is fucked. There's no coming back from that one. Sainz is fucked. Sainz is going to go into Ferrari, which is massively in love with a driver that might not be quite as good as him, and he's going to get given a shit car to boot. So, Carlos Sainz never going to be a world champion. Lock in.
Just think, he escaped the Red Bull meat grinder for this.
I know.
He is like the only one, pretty
well
much,
done,
isn't
Carlos.
he?
To go to the home of rest for old Formula One drivers.
The Mercedes, then.
Tyre shreddingly amazing. Or the amazing tyre shredding.
Well, to be fair, they kept to a pretty good race pace. The strategy was okay. It's just that one particular driver had a better strategy and managed the tyres a lot better than they did. Didn't happen to be in a Mercedes. They were outfoxed by Max Verstappen in that Red Bull.
Isn't it terrifying, though, that Mercedes can have a race where they are literally destroying their tyres, shredding their tyres to pieces after less than 10 laps, and there's still only one driver that can beat them?
Yeah, they're still finishing second and third.
Yeah.
I got a message today from a friend of mine who I've recently found out is a Formula One fan. He didn't know I was. I didn't know he was. And he was saying, look, do you think Bottas, and this is a phrase he used, do you think Bottas had his pants pulled down by Mercedes, given that it looked like they were going to hang Hamilton out until the end of the race, and then they pitted him, was it 10 laps before the end, 9 laps before the end, something like that, to give him a run. And he just flew past Bottas. They
chose to fuck Bottas. They chose to do it.
The strategy that Hamilton's side of the garage chose, and obviously the team is still part of the same team, totally destroyed Bottas. Don't forget, Bottas was the pole man on Saturday. He put in a hell of a lap.
If that was the same way, if that was the other way round, they'd have pitted both drivers.
Yeah, I don't believe that. Yeah, I also think that something that the Mercedes got wrong with Bottas was, when he followed Verstappen into the pits, I think it should have been do the opposite to Max. If Max comes in, stay out.
Mm-hmm.
If he stays out, you come in.
Yeah, because at that point they're basically putting him on the same strategy as Verstappen, knowing that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was no way Bottas was going to catch Max on that strategy. They had to try something different. I said on last week's podcast I expected Red Bull to try something different and that Verstappen would get maybe in between the Mercedes. What I totally didn't expect was Verstappen to try something different and beat both of the Mercedes.
Yeah.
By not driving like a granny.
Yeah, which
It's important.
Was, yeah, and making sure his team were hydrated.
And sanitised.
And sanitised.
Do you think that Mercedes?
We're doing the top two. We're doing the top two teams all in one, aren't we?
Yeah.
Mercedes were doing their very best to win Hamilton that race. That's why they left him out for so long. They were desperate to try and help Hamilton win that race.
Yeah, I'm going to throw in a stat from last year's podcasts here. Despite the fact the race didn't go his way, Lewis Hamilton extends his championship lead yet again.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking that yesterday. But if they'd have brought Lewis in 3 laps earlier, I think he'd have had a chance to win that race.
Maybe. I think he was far too cautious going past Charles Leclerc, given how much pace he actually had. I don't think he needed to wait that 2/3, 3/4 of a lap, because by the time he got past Leclerc, the gap that was 10 seconds before he got past Leclerc was still 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So if
he was only like 4 behind Verstappen, wasn't he? And like he was lapping Verstappen at like 2 seconds a lap.
Not quite that much, I don't think. It was like 1.6 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was fast enough that he could have caught him until he got up behind Leclerc. I don't know why he decided. Maybe this is the Alain Prost style. Lewis Hamilton claims to not be a fan of Alain Prost, but drives an awful lot like him at times. Where he won't do the risky thing because he knows there's points up for grabs and his teammates behind him anyway. So what does it matter?
The other thing is as well, he might have been thinking that. It's if you've got Leclerc up in that position and he's got the chance to do better, you had a slightly more desperate Leclerc, and when people are a bit more desperate, they're a bit more reckless. So he probably had that in his head.
Leclerc on well-worn tyres as well, which even if Leclerc's being careful, something can go wrong.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. I mean,
he's in 2020 Ferrari. There is a high chance of something going wrong.
Yes, there is that.
Well, I wonder how much of it is Lewis Hamilton thinking, I know we're only in round 5 and we're looking at the moment a 16-race calendar. But I wonder if in round 5 he's like, I've got a 40-point lead here. I'd be all right if I just don't. Was it 40 or 30-point lead? Anyway, I could do
37 jumps in my head from somewhere. So yeah, I think it's nearly 40.
Many.
So yeah, he's just like, I don't, you know what? Like, so long as I'm ahead of Valtteri, I'm okay going to the next race. Maybe he's already thinking about that.
Yeah, it definitely is.
He'll
I mean,
never admit it, but maybe he is.
As long as he doesn't have like an off or like his engine blows up or something like that. He won the championship last weekend.
Well, we'll see what happens obviously in the rest of the season. There could still be many turning points.
They have to get on top of this overheating problem because we're going to the hot countries now, and we're going to the hot countries when we're not even used to going to the hot countries.
Yeah, so Spain is probably going to be the similar issue this coming week.
Spain will be ridiculous, I imagine, this week.
Oh, they're expecting air temps around about 35 degrees.
Yeah,
and
three races in Italy, is there, this year?
Yeah. One of them's quite late.
The last races are starting to cool down in. So you've got Monza. It's a traditional beginning of September date,
which can either be
race.
Monza can either be roasting or soaking.
Yeah.
And then you got Mugello, I think, the week after that, but then Imola is not until the 1st of November, so it should be a lot cooler.
That'll be a bit more autumnal, I imagine.
Yes.
Don't know what the Italian is for autumn.
Probably much more interesting than autumnal.
Il autumni.
You guys will appreciate this. We're going to just go on a bit of a tangent here.
What a surprise, we never do that.
I know, yeah.
I tied an onion to my belt as that was the style at the time.
I was at work the other day and we unpacked an awning that was built in Italy, and we didn't know which side the arms were on, apart from the fact that it was written in Italian. And do you know how I knew which was left and which was right?
From Pirelli's.
Because of the way that Ferrari have their tyre covers on.
Yes.
Sinistro anti.
Anteriori destra and anteriori sinistra. I was like, wait, hang on. I'm pretty sure sinistra is left and destra is right. So I had to Google it, and I was correct. I was like, Ferrari taught me something.
There are hundreds of ex-Ferrari drivers that all say the same thing, just in a slightly different tone.
Ferrari taught me something. That's what most of them are like.
But Verstappen's win in the end played the strategy perfectly.
Oh, he was fantastic. It was almost too easy for him because Mercedes, as we said, were shredding their tyres. He knew he was going to be leading that race as soon as Mercedes had to pit. All he had to do was make sure he didn't destroy his hard tyres early on, and he didn't. He looked after them. He had good pace on those tyres. And when he came in to stop for his, was it mediums he ran on the last stint, I think?
No, he sandwiched it. He did a little medium
stint. That's right,
stint.
he did a little stint, didn't he, on mediums in the middle before going straight back onto the hards again.
Yes.
He just went out, must have shredded the mediums just for a bit of pace, and then again got those hard tyres back.
Yeah, because he got the radio call saying,
we don't need to save them.
Yeah, don't need to save them. What was it? Drive as fast as you can within the limits of the tyres.
Yeah.
So don't save them, but save them while going quickly.
Yeah.
And
do
go
what
quickly.
You can, then we'll pit you in a bit. And then as soon as they made that second pit stop, as I said, because Bottas was behind Max going into the pits, like that kind of nullified the race then, because you thought, well, the only option Mercedes had to win now is if they leave Hamilton out, and Hamilton's got pace, but Hamilton did not have pace and was definitely going to get caught by Max before the end of the race. So pitting Hamilton with, I think, as I said before, 10 laps to go, turned out to be the right decision, but only for Lewis Hamilton, not really for anyone else.
Cosmotion Albon Smith saying it's an Albon comeback. What happened?
Well, he had a not as good qualifying as his teammate. I think he had tyre problems and did a couple of early pit stops.
So I just saw him making up places, but
he seemed to be overtaking Kimi Räikkönen a lot. He seemed to get stuck behind the Alphas quite a bit.
Brave overtake. I'd probably say overtake of the day from Albon around the outside of Copse.
He liked that one, didn't he? That seemed to be his line.
Yeah, it was good. It was very good. And props to Raikkonen as well, just leaving him enough room to make sure he wasn't breaking the track limit rules. So he was off the circuit, but he was, able to hold the line and use his pace to get past Kimi.
I still do rate Albon as a driver, and I think we will see.
I think if Red Bull are patient, which is not generally their strong suit, I think they will be rewarded, because I think he is still a bit too fresh at the moment. He needs a full season in the Red Bull to be able to then drive the Red Bull next year. Whether or not they are prepared to do that is another thing.
I mean, I know Red Bull go through a lot of drivers, but I can't think of an example of Red Bull putting somebody in the big boy car while there's been Toro Rosso straight away in the first season.
No.
Because even Max was in his second season when they moved him up.
It was a move of desperation. It was a move of desperation because Gasly really, really wasn't working. And essentially giving Albon nothing to lose, because the guy he'd replaced had done quite badly. He was essentially he was racing him in an inferior car. Because we saw them both on track together quite a lot, considering one was in a Toro Rosso and one was in a Red Bull. But I don't see it. I don't see how they're going to keep going with Albon. And they're already given the words, like as soon as Red Bull come out and say, no, we are 100% behind a driver, it's game over.
Still never going to see Kvyat back in the big boy team.
I think he'll go back to Toro Rosso. But Red Bull needs something. They need two drivers, because that's what at the minute. If they're fighting a team which is just generally better than them, they need to do it on strategy, which is something Red Bull have always been good at. And how many times have we seen them use two cars strategically? It's by putting them on two different strategies or something like that. to try and shake Mercedes into doing something they don't want to do with one of their cars,
Oh, yeah,
and at least splitting them. And they can't do that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean,
they told Albon, didn't they, that they needed him to be within. If you remember when he joined the team last year, stay within a pit stop of Hamilton, and he managed it for his first few races. Hamilton would pit and Albon would be ahead of him. Okay, it wasn't that easy for Albon on shredded tires in a new car to defend from Lewis Hamilton, but he was in the right place. He did what the team asked him to do to start with. Just this season, I just think he's. I don't know if he's maybe done like, remember Ricciardo last year had problems adapting to the Renault. Okay, it was a brand new team for him, but I wonder if Albon's not adapting to this new car, expected it to be a bit of an evolution, whereas actually it's a totally new thing altogether. Mm-hmm. And it's just we might not see the best of him this year, but 2021, if we get that full calendar back for next year, could be a really decent year for Red Bull and for Albon.
Which according to Chase Carey, the next 2021 calendar is all more or less set, and apparently will look like this year's was going to.
But do they risk it? Do they risk Albon not doing it?
I think we'll start the season with him. Whether they end the season or not with him, well, that'd be the most Red Bull of Red Bull moves.
Yeah, but who are they going to get? This is what I mean. Right now, there are drivers moving around. If they've got no one to plug into the seat this year, then I don't see who they're going to get next year.
Yeah, if they
at the minute you have two proven like mid-grid, like what you would think of. I know Hülkenberg hasn't found his way onto the podium yet, but what you would consider as people that are capable of getting a car up onto the podium and like being in that. If you've got a team. If you've got a team like Red Bull, which especially with the falling of Ferrari, are their sights as being at least second best team next year. It's especially if the Racing Point's got to wheel back some of its Mercedes bits, then you need another driver that's going to be capable of charging towards the Mercedes. And you've got two guys which I think are capable of doing it in Perez and Hülkenberg, and you can essentially take your pick of them. So if you don't do it this year, you're not going to have the opportunity to do it next year. And next year they're going to be stuck going into 2021 with Albon still in the car because they don't have anyone to replace him with. And if he's still 30 seconds behind Max Verstappen, and they go into 2021 where it's a complete rule shake-up again.
No, 2022.
Sorry, 2020. Sorry, I mean 2022. It's like if next year at the end of the year, you're going into a complete rule shake-up where if you're Red Bull, you want to be coming into that as a title contender. I know it's not up to them. It depends just where they land. You need two drivers that are going to be able to help you win those championships.
Oh, Alonso will probably be available at the end of next season after he rage quits Renault again.
Maybe.
Can't rule it out.
But,
he's got previous.
I just don't think. I don't think you can risk it unless I think Albon can keep his seat, but he really, really needs to sort this out. And I don't see how you can go from being. Like how far he is behind Max Verstappen, I don't see how you half that gap in the time he's got.
I mean,
time will tell.
We're five races into a we think 16 race season, so we're only a third of the way through. Think things may change. I know we're not getting a summer break this year. I
think the issue you've got as well is the fact that with the fact that the races are coming at us thick and fast, Albon's not getting a chance to regroup.
Yeah, I suppose they're not going to be doing a lot of simulator stuff as well if he's got a problem.
Yeah, even shaking the disappointment off. You're going into the next race with fresh wounds from what happened to you the week before.
Yeah, nobody's really shaking off the, or getting a chance to regroup. The only time you get a chance to regroup is when you have the 1 week off in between the triple headers. So you got Spain next week, and then you've got a week off to sort of just sort of shake it off and sort of get back into some kind of remember you're a human and not just a racing machine, and then straight back into another three races again after that.
Yeah, the problem is that if you got a contract with Red Bull, you're not allowed to be a human. You have to be a racing machine, otherwise you get fired.
Well, you just got to do your job, really, haven't you? That's we can criticize it, and I think it does deserve being. It does deserve criticism. No, I was going to say it does deserve being criticised, but at the top and bottom of it is they are. We moan when teams don't give young drivers the chance. We were all upset about Bottas being kept on and George not being given the seat for next year. If the other side of the coin is Red Bull do give the drivers the opportunities, and it's up to them what they do with it. And if to go back to a wrestling adage, if they don't get themselves over, they don't get themselves over.
Yeah, the thing is, though, it takes more than the 6 months that Red Bull have got a tendency to give younger drivers to do it.
Didn't for Sebastian Vettel. Didn't for Max Verstappen. This is the thing. They give it. They're not looking for.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? They're the outliers. That's why we say it's the meat grinder.
Ricardo as well was pretty much on the ball as soon as he was in the car.
So they're not looking for Sergio Perez's, for instance. I do still think he would be a decent shout for them in the interim, but they're looking for world champions. And if you look at who's come through on young driver programs, yes, they've been through a lot of drivers, but when you think, like you just said there, you've got Ricardo, Sainz, Sebastian Vettel, and Max Verstappen that they brought through into Formula One. Name me another team.
For every one of them, there's 20 Christian Kleins.
Yeah, but what other team has brought like one of the greatest drivers of his generation and 3 other potential world champions through in such a short space of time?
Yeah, I mean, everyone from the Mercedes program who's got into F1, none of them have got into the team. I think probably only McLaren with Lewis Hamilton is probably the only other one I can think of where it's been someone who's been like bred through that team.
Yeah, and look at McLaren. McLaren's a perfect example for it. Apart from Lewis Hamilton, what's their young driver program given us?
Lando?
Kevin Magnussen, a short term of Stoffel Van Dorn, and Gary Paffett.
Oh, Christ. Is he still on the young driver program? He might be. They might have just forgotten they've got him.
But I mean, they had. Did McLaren have Sam Bird for a hot minute? I know Mercedes had him in the end.
Nick De Vries as well. He was going to be like the next big thing, wasn't he?
Alex Lynn, was he connected to McLaren at
No,
one
he
point?
he was Williams.
Williams. But it's like that's the point where you've got to. There's definitely 2 sides to the Red Bull coin. And both of them deserve acknowledged.
The thing is, though, no other team really took the young driver program seriously until they saw what Red Bull was doing.
Nope.
And I mean, the Red Bull young driver program was initially to bring Americans into Formula One. It was set up for Scott Speed.
Yeah.
That was a pretty swift change of direction when they found out what he was really like.
And realistically, I think there's only one driver where they've got it wrong. I think they got it wrong with Jev. I think he's good enough to still be in Formula One. John-Eric Verne. I think they let one slip through the net, and there was nowhere else for him to go. Even though I was a bit of a fan of Al-Jawsari. I liked Al-Jawsari, but I don't think he was the same caliber as like Jean-Eric Verne. Whereas I think Verne was the same sort of caliber as Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, I think Al-Jawsari maybe could have caught on to like another midfield team, but
yeah,
I think Jev's issue height. Was that his main thing? He was in F1 at the time when cars were a little bit skinnier, and he just
I think
couldn't keep weight.
height was his issue.
Yeah,
and-
Sky keeps showing the 2018 Martin Brundle Monza grid walk, and Jeb's towering over him.
Yeah,
He's a big lad.
The other thing is, I don't think he was the easiest person to get on with either, was he?
He can be a bit
Inside a
fiery on
team.
the old radio, can't he?
Yeah, and that seems to go a long way with teams, is to be like personable with people.
No, in Red Bull though, you're just a number.
Well, no, you
And
can,
I
you can
suppose-
get
I suppose
away.
The problem is they had such a great team as well. They had such a great team with Vettel and Webber. So that that was a problem for anyone trying to break through. Right now is the easiest time to get into Red Bull in the history of Formula One. In the history of the team, very very near since then. It's they're desperate for another Jean-Eric Vergne now.
I mean, don't forget, officially Sebastian Buemi is still the
Pretty much any
the reserve.
Formula E champion they've owned at some point, I think, except Nelson Piquet. Ooh, a big flash of lightning has just happened outside.
Yeah, because Antonio Felix da Costa was one of
He
theirs,
was meat
wasn't
ground.
Do you reckon Jean-Eric Vergne secretly kind of regrets not coming back to Formula One? Because if you remember when he was interviewed, he essentially said, didn't he? He was offered the Toro Rosso seat, and he said he'd rather be competing in a championship where he's winning races and winning championships.
Yeah, he said that after he'd had a seat fitting.
Yeah.
Which, if you have zero interest, you don't go that far with it, surely.
Yeah. But the way the Red Bull has worked out, and the way that the caliber of driver that is competing for the second big boy team car, gotta think that if Jean-Eric Vergne took that drive, he'd have probably ended up back in Red Bull. He'd have probably ended up with his shot in the car.
Yeah, may very well have done.
Yeah, I mean, if it had stuck around, he could well have. What's happened to Albon happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think they'd have probably gone with him as well because he was older, had more experience, was maybe faster.
Possibly, it could be.
Yeah, because he would have got what was the Brendan Hartley seat, wouldn't he? Which I think is what Kvyat took for last year. So yeah, he when it was Kvyat or Albon to replace Gasly, he would have been in that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bit of a
maybe so.
mistake.
Right, rock stars and wankers from this weekend.
Leclerc was a rock star.
Verstappen, bit of an obvious choice,
was
but
a rock star.
Gonna throw Lewis Hamilton out as slight wanker just for casting aspersions on the Red Bull tyre pressures when he couldn't
they've
catch
got to
him.
be
agree with
cheating. Oh, fuck off, Lewis. Yeah, that was a bit of a shitty one.
Yeah.
Also picking up the winner's trophy on the podium and walking off with it.
Did he? I missed that.
Missed that bit.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton picked up the P1 trophy and walked off with it.
Thought it was rightfully his.
Yeah.
Lawrence Stroll.
Yeah, I'd go on Lawrence Stroll.
Yeah,
That was
solid wanker.
it was an awkward.
I mean, I've seen interviews like that before, but they've usually been on sort of sketchy quality VHS where the person doing the talking is chained to a radiator and holding up that day's newspaper to show they're still alive.
That's not an interview. That's a ransom note.
Videos like that.
I mean, who thought that was a good idea?
Lawrence Stroll thought it was a good idea.
Does he have that many yes men around him that no one thought to put their hand up and say, "Do you know what, Lawrence? This looks a bit shit."
The thing is, he released the video statement, and then he did an interview with Sky where he just repeated everything that he'd said in a face-to-face interview.
Almost like word for word.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ. Yeah, there's a reason he doesn't do the interviews very often, I think.
I don't
and-
speak publicly very often. That's a
That's-
good thing.
Yeah.
Right, that kind of moves us on nicely to the result of the Renault protest. Yes, they're sort of illegal, but they were legal at the time, and then they stopped becoming illegal while they were in the post.
Yeah, something like that. So last year, it was legal, essentially, to buy another team's design. So Racing Point's argument is that because they bought last year's brake design, it's legal. But I think the FIA argument is because they've applied it this year, when it's not legal, that it's illegal. So there's some kind of grey area argument going on.
'Cause I think what Racing Point are saying is they took delivery, because it's the rear brake ducts it's moved on to now. The issue was about all four, but the front brake ducts are suitably different from
It doesn't
what
matter
Mercedes
what
have
it's
got.
about, is it? It's more that it's about something.
So they took delivery of the rear brake ducts just before, and we're talking, I think it was only a couple of days before they became a listed part.
Mm-hmm.
So they had them when they were legal, so they could make their own versions of them.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden they become illegal and you've got to stop.
It's
The
tricky,
thing is,
isn't
they
it?
knew they were becoming illegal,
Yeah.
didn't they? They obtained them during a period of legality, whilst they knew that it would become an illegal thing.
I think it would be interesting to know what's under the car as well, because they can see the brake ducts. That's why they're part of the conversation. We can't see what's under the car. So if you were to break that car down, how many parts are similar to the Mercedes that couldn't be copied through photographs?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
Toto said, I think it was
Toto said
Thursday.
lots of things.
I think it was Thursday that yet another team has took quite a large number of 3D photos of the Mercedes last year.
Yeah, also, don't forget we had Scarbs on in March, and he said he's seen underneath that Racing Point, and it is remarkably different underneath the skin to last year's Mercedes. It's just,
I don't think he's seen underneath it, has he? He just meant the. I think he just meant what you could see from the outside. I don't think
the skin is very Mercedes, but everything underneath it is still Racing Point.
I think he means as well when it's like in the garage and it's got some wings off and stuff. I think he's spotted more differences that our novice eye has not.
Yeah, like the positioning of the master cylinders for the brakes, etc., and things like that.
Oh
yeah.
no!
Are you happy about it though?
All the best, Craig, if you're listening right now. By the way.
Yeah, absolutely. But are you happy about the Racing Point situation though?
I don't think it matters. Like, if they were clever
really
enough
not?
to do it, then let them crack on. If they did it and it was legal, fine, let them crack on. If they did it after
it needs sewn up though. It like the whole that loophole needs sewn up, or like we might as well go to the 3-car teams.
Bring back customer cars. Remember back in the old days when there was, when they had to be pre-qualifying, you used to be able to buy a complete car from a team. I mean, in the 70s, half the grid were running marches.
Yeah, didn't Hesketh buy a car?
Hesketh was a march.
Yeah, I see. It depends which way you go. I mean, if you're going to do that, fucking make it more spec than anything else, and let's get the cars close together. If we're going to have a pure constructors championship, then you need to have constructors building their own cars.
You just have to do what I've said all along and let everybody see everybody else's blueprint.
Yeah, that would work too.
I think at the end of the day, if there's a loophole, then Racing Point are well within their rights to go for it, because that's what pretty much any car that's ever made progress towards the front of the grid has done to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was something that Brundle said I think it was Brundle said at the weekend. The whole point of Formula One is just to find the loopholes in the rules and exploit them, and that's the main thing that teams exist for.
I think the fair thing, if the FIA has decided, we don't really like this, is just say, all right, done for next year. I think if there has genuinely been some ambiguity in the rules, and I haven't read the rules because I can't be asked, then I think it's probably wrong to punish Racing Point if they've had the FIA in to look at that car before the start of the season and had it signed off. So to punish them now is a bit shitty.
Let's be honest. it's not in the spirit of Formula One. We hear this quite a lot, as it's not in the spirit of the rules. And because if you break it down, yeah, it's great for Racing Point because they managed to find seconds from nowhere with like less effort than it would have been to find those seconds if they did it themselves. What Mercedes get is a car that's slower than them and can mix it up with their rivals to make their job easier. And that, to me, is if you're turning a rival team into a wingman for you, I find that uncomfortable.
I'm kind of with you on the spirit of F1 thing, but it's not a new thing. This is exactly what Haas did 2 years ago. It's just that their Ferrari parts aren't as good as they used to be, and their effectiveness has dropped off.
I think it's more extreme than the Ferrari parts, though.
I think it works better. I don't think it's more.
But this is why. But the fact that Haas are where they are is because they couldn't continue doing what they were doing with Ferrari because the rules started to sew those areas up. So if that's the case, it's that falls more at the door that this isn't right.
I think Haas were using more parts, though, weren't they? There've been more parts that have been listed, and that's where the model hasn't worked so much for Haas, whereas Racing Point have gone for something that was, up until I think like the middle of January this year, unlisted.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, haven't the FIA already tightened up on listed parts for next year already? And this is something that usually happens round about the turn of the year.
Yeah, usually what happens is someone finds a loophole, everyone whinges about it, and the FIA goes, oh, we'll just tighten it up for next year. DAS being the obvious example from this year.
Yeah, I mean, the FIA were quick to ban it for next year.
Yeah.
When it came out. But
you've got an issue next year, haven't you? Because the cars are remaining pretty similar.
Yes, that I think is why everyone is protesting it so hard, because they want to make sure Racing Point have to do some work for next year.
Mm.
And of course, it's not taken away from the development tokens that they can use.
No, but it's going to take manpower away in time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to cause them issues when it actually comes to developing
the 2022.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or
they might have to write off next year. They might have to write off, and we might see Racing Point at the back with Williams.
This protest, depending on how it plays out, could actually really affect what happens with Vettel, because if their car is essentially ruined and they're going to have this write-off year, he's not going to go there next year.
No.
We've heard for the last 2 weeks, haven't we, that it's going to be announced this weekend, and it hasn't been announced. So obviously 2 weeks ago was Perez testing positive for COVID. You can't sack the man while he's ill. This weekend we hear, it's going to be announced, and then all of a sudden Racing Point have lost this protest. And it's all gone quiet.
Yeah.
We could see Vettel in Albon's seat next year at this rate.
Although he did fly home with Bob Fernley the other day.
Oh, did he? After his petrol station trip with Otmar last week?
Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah.
To the petrol station that's right next to the travel lodge we stayed in when we went to the Mercedes launch.
Oh, was that where it was?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you've thrown up outside that petrol station.
I didn't throw up outside it.
Oh no, you made it back to the room on time, didn't you?
Yeah, I was I threw up in the room.
He flew back with Bob Fernley.
Yeah,
interesting.
So.
It might have been Otmar actually. He flew with.
What is Bob Fernley these days?
Bob Fernley is running.
He got fired from McLaren, didn't he?
He got fired from McLaren after wet paint, no gearbox and steering wheel.
Program, isn't he?
Sponsored by Rocket.
Oh Christ!
Yeah, Rocket launched their new open wheel sponsorship last week, which was Bob Fernley's new
CNF Precision Engineering.
That's the bunny. And basically, it looks like what this year's Williams was going to. A little more blocky and not quite as aerodynamic. But Bob Fernley is teaching students how to design and make racing cars. With all the backing from Rocket, whose energy drinks I've never seen on sale either.
I didn't even know Rocket was an energy drink. I just knew they made phones.
Oh,
They make all sorts.
Oh, they've got a brewery as well.
The Humphrey Bogart range of spirits, I believe they have the distribution rights to.
Oh yeah, that was a thing. And the logo for their beer, it looks remarkably similar to Pissvasser from Grand Theft Auto.
I wonder. I bet their phones are quite big in sort of developing countries and stuff like that because they're quite a low budget maker, aren't they?
Yeah, the cheap phones with as many features crammed in as possible, I think is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, to be fair, the way they're doing it is it's almost like a OnePlus thing. So I wouldn't mind betting Rocket phones become a bigger player in the future. The way because there's clearly money behind them. You know what I mean? It's not a rich energy situation.
No, it's the guy that runs Patron who has
people
set
are
it
getting
all up.
paid.
Who is big mates with Zach Brown and
what do you call it, Gentleman Racer, isn't
Gentleman Racer on was it Amazon or Netflix? It was one of them, and has done Le Mans several times. So, as a company, the money behind them has got history in not just racing sponsorship, but actually getting in the car and driving it.
Yeah.
So this is why they're a little bit more believable than Rich Energy were.
Well, I mean, they're believable because they're paying. They're paying the things. They've got products, and it's Rich Energy was just a fucking con, wasn't it?
Oh, I saw some Rich Energy on sale in a shop this week, and it was with the old logo as well. So I decided to steer well clear of it.
So they've not sold enough to get rid of the old packaging yet.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, let's stop talking about products.
Yes. Yeah, we're not being paid to talk about any product whatsoever this week. And I've been asked when we do talk about products again, can we at least pre-announce that we're about to start talking about products?
No, that's part of the fun.
Sorry, Declan. I tried. What else were we going to talk about? Because there was another news story as well, and of course, with not having notes written down in front of me or adding to that document that Chris sent, I've completely dried up. Bottas, yes. Yes, Mr. 1 year has another year.
Who's shocked?
Nobody. It was kind of announced a few weeks ago, but was only confirmed.
That's the thing. I
last
thought
week.
it had been announced, and then all of a sudden it was in the final stages. And
Well, everybody else is tied up, and it was just a case of, Bottas is going to sign. He just hasn't yet. And it's just like, right, okay. Well, Bottas has signed, but they haven't announced it. Right, okay. And then it took them 3 weeks to go, announce Bottas.
Yeah, and even
okay.
down to the fact with George Russell being confirmed at Williams, you go, well, there was the guy that might have replaced Bottas. So, yeah, my whelmed is subterranean when it comes to this.
That means you're over it. If the whelm is subterranean, you're overwhelmed.
No, I'm with the whelmed.
And of course, Lewis hasn't signed his contract yet, but apparently it's not the right time to do it.
Well, I mean, also, Mercedes are starting to argue about Concord agreements, aren't they?
Yeah, the deadline for that is Wednesday this week.
oh, is it? Jesus.
Yes.
And Mercedes said the current terms of the Concord agreement, they're not prepared to sign it.
Oh, starting the rumour now then. Hamilton to Red Bull.
Hamilton to Red Bull, or it depends. Maybe that depends on how the Racing Point talk goes.
But yeah, of course, the Concord Agreement is basically what gives the teams the money, and Mercedes don't like the distribution of prize money for. I think it's all down to the historic champions amount.
It's not the amount, it's the way that they're paid that Mercedes have a problem with. And Formula One are saying, no, that's how it is. And Mercedes will turn around and go, well, we ain't signing. And Formula One will go, well, you got till Wednesday. Toto and Mercedes have been like, well, we told you we ain't signing. So we'll find out on Wednesday whether or not Mercedes are formally entered in the 2021 championship.
I can't say them not signing it, but I can they're playing chicken with the FIA basically.
I think the problem is you've got two sets of rules to worry about. you've got what's happening next year and what's happening in 2022.
Yeah.
Where usually with a Concord Agreement, you've got a set of rules that's going to take you through that Concord Agreement, don't you?
Yeah, because I mean, I think all the previous ones have been signed the year before a rule shake-up.
Yeah. Which
this was meant to be. Which this was meant to be. Even though we've been saying 2021 isn't happening in 2021 since 2019. We were. Or I was. It's good. It's Mercedes doing the brinkmanship thing again. And I thought, they've got a lot of bargaining power at the moment, because for them to say, okay, then we're off, we're not signing it, all of a sudden you lose multiple world title winners and an engine supply to 30%, 40% from next season of the grid.
Yeah.
Chase Carey's not going to want that.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm saying they're doing brinkmanship with the FIA. It's FOM that this is agreed with them. I'm not used to saying that people are at war with the FIA.
They probably are somewhere along the line, aren't they?
There's bound to be something.
Like a war-torn Middle Eastern country.
Rosbergia. Shall we shunt it?
Do we not need to do some predictions?
Oh shoot! Yes, we haven't had predictions. I can't get my head around these triple headers.
It's race week again.
It's always bloody race week. Right, we got a pen and paper.
No. That's a very good question.
No, it's all right. Oh God, lots of cats.
So that was the sound of Dizzy's head bouncing off the table.
She's a resilient cat. She appears to be fine. I was going to say it's okay. I've got notepad open.
After all that. After I concuss the cat.
Yeah, you're getting an evil look right this minute. Who wants to go first, or shall I do the people what aren't here?
Let's have the people who couldn't be bothered turning up.
Well,
I jest. I
was going to say Dan's kind of busy tonight, so he couldn't be with us. But he is going.
Dan should be married.
Yes, Dan, who should have been married this weekend. He should be on honeymoon right now.
But thanks to COVID, it's now next year.
Yes. He is going for. I'm just scrolling back in our message thread. The same top three as last week, which is Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen.
In that order. And then our guest predictor this week is on Twitter, and it's Justin Smedley. So thank you for sending that through. He's going for a Hamilton win, Verstappen second, and V1.3 Bottas third. He also is throwing Rockstars and Wankers in. Rockstars, Albon figures out what felt right with his car during the last race, finishes P4, keeps it within 0.4 of max in all sessions, unlike his usual 0.7 plus, and Sainz rebounds with a P5 at his home race. Wankers, Stroll, who goes against the falsely claimed if he has a good car, he does a good job thing again. Liv, you've been talking to this guy. Ferrari for insert one of any of the multiple fails will ultimately make. Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I'll tell you what, for a season that we thought should be really, really predictable, it's not been very easy to predict, has it?
No.
I'm going to go the same as Justin. I'm going to go Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas.
Okay. Hang on, I'm trying to operate a keyboard at arm's length. It's not really working. Why don't I just move the microphone? So Hamilton,
what tyres
Verstappen,
are we using?
Bottas.
It is the same tyres that were at the first Silverstone race.
Right, okay.
So 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
But it's going to be much hotter, isn't it?
It's going to be around a little bit hotter than it was at
hotter.
Silverstone this weekend, but not like, oh my God, it's an entirely different climate.
Right.
Remembering it wasn't cold at Silverstone last weekend, it was still pretty damn warm.
Yeah, This is very true.
Anybody fancy?
I'll go. I thought Lee was going. I thought that's why he was asking questions.
I'll go.
Go on then.
Max Verstappen,
Okay.
Albon,
Christ.
Whoa.
and Lewis Hamilton.
This is an exotic podium. I would like to see that race.
I think Albon's going to sort himself out a little bit, and I think the Mercedes are really going to struggle.
I am also going to go for a Verstappen win.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to go for a Hamilton second. And because the tyres seem to last quite well for Leclerc, I'm going to go for Leclerc third.
If I knew Hulkenberg would be racing, I'd have gone with Hulkenberg for third. But I think it'll be Perez, and I don't think after missing this time he'll be able to get it on the podium after that long. And I don't think Stroll's capable of finding the podium.
But do we think that Racing Point will pull Perez in towards the end of the race to give Lance a bit of a bump?
Well, yeah,
No.
but he's still not going to be close enough to the podium.
It was only because Hulkenberg won't be driving again. I don't like. I think the bonus was was not having him outdone by the reserve driver. But I think that was just a bonus of the giving him the extra points.
Well, I'm going to go for a Verstappen win, Bottas second, Hamilton third. I think Lewis will suffer with his tyres again. And if you want to join in and make your own predictions, if you go to threelegs4wheels.com, go to the games section, and we've got the 2020 Prediction League there. You can predict your top three, pole sitter, fastest lap, and how many DNFs. And you've got until 5 minutes before Q1 starts on Saturday, which is 1:55 UK time, to do that. And we've already had a few predictions, even though it only went up a couple of hours ago. So there's some people massively confident, even ahead of FP1 on Friday.
That is bold.
If you put them in, you do get to change. You can change them at any time,
okay.
right up until 5 minutes before qualifying. So I think these people have just put it in just in case they forget.
I tell you what, the smart fiver might be on Ricardo for a podium.
Yeah, I thought that on Sunday. Let me down.
I want to say Ricardo traditionally not a Spain goer, but I could be wrong. Off the top of my head, I did not look this up before opening mouth, which would have been an idea.
He didn't even seem to bother too much with tyres, did he? The tyres seemed to be pretty good for him.
We didn't hear him complaining about the tyres too much.
I mean, his spin was while he was on well-worn tyres, but that's one of them, isn't it?
One to look at. Right, definitely shunting time now. Not
absolutely.
Not forgotten anything else. Oh, just before we do that, I'll get this one in now. Formula Lee. Just waiting for the next patch.
Ooh, death.
Yeah. Just waiting for the next patch from Codemasters, which is due in the next few days, which apparently will fix the time trial glitch. So Formula Lee should be back on from next week's show.
Good stuff.
Which is just as well, because Scott 3D, who are sponsoring it this year, have got some prizes lined up, and we'd like to be able to give them away. Thank you, Codemasters.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
This one has come from Tom Horrocks. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Good
Tom.
start.
I think he's a previous shunter.
The name is familiar.
He's a previous shunter, and he's a McLaren fan, which always gives him a bump.
Right, I am minimising windows,
but not closing the laptop.
Not closing the laptop.
Correct.
Just making sure that we're still recording. Yeah, we are.
Also, nobody reminded me this week, and I remember he reminded me like 2 weeks ago. So his was the highest up the list for the bump. So if you want to get in and fucking get your shunt used, get messaging me. I was born.
Yay.
Have we done this one? No, I don't think we have. I don't think we have.
Scroll to the bottom and have a look at the answer.
Yeah, no, we haven't.
You're all right.
I was born in the month of February.
Right.
Okay.
I died in my 20s.
Ooh, nice and morbid.
I never raced in Formula One.
So this could be Hubert. Not sure when his birthday was, but he died 20. Did not get to F1. Should have.
Yeah.
Would have probably done this coming year.
Yeah, would have definitely been in with a with a shout for a Renault seat. Yeah, let's go with Hubert. We haven't got anything else.
Yeah.
My death occurred at a horrific crash at Spa-Francorchamps.
It's sounded like Antoine Hubert.
In my last full season, I won 2 races and got 1 pole position.
Which I think he did.
His last full season would have been F3, in which he was champion. Which
So he did
suggests
better than that, didn't he?
I would have expected more race wins for that. Yeah,
Yeah, it was 33 on the grid, so it can get very mixed up.
very true.
I was widely considered one of the best drivers from my country before my death.
Yeah, that would still ring true for Antoine Hubert.
Yeah,
I would like a guess.
I don't have a better offering than Hubert at the moment.
No,
Neither do I.
no.
You're burning 2 guesses on Antoine Hubert. Easy for me to say.
Yes.
Clue 7. I am not Antoine Hubert.
Good Lord,
Oh,
we've been
That
led
might-
down a path. They knew it was coming.
wow.
Oh,
Okay.
That might be my favourite clue of all time.
That's very good. I feel like this guy is in our head.
I am the Zodiac Killer.
Good Lord.
I drove for Mercedes-Benz for 2 years against my mother's wishes.
Right. Okay. I've got a thought. I'm just going to throw it out after the next one.
Okay.
After winning the German Grand Prix, I became one of Adolf Hitler's favourite drivers.
Also going back a little bit then.
Yeah. Okay, it's not going to be what I thought it was. I was going to take an outside punt at a name that Sean is fond of dropping facts about when he's on the show. Prince Bearer.
Oh,
No.
yes. Prince Bearer. Christ.
I was going to suggest Wolfgang von Trips, but Wolfgang von Trips died at Monza and not Spa.
Not seeing anything from yous that are going to get this right.
Oh,
Christ.
Although I am British and proud, in 1938 I married the daughter of the director of BMW, again against the wishes of my mother. That was your 10th clue. There is a spaffer.
I am voting that we do the spaffer this week.
Yeah, I think I need Spaffer.
Yeah.
My name is absolutely hilarious and rather phallic.
Willie Pointer.
Closer than you care to imagine.
Oh, no.
John Thomas Harding.
I've got nothing.
Get Roman.com.
Oh, God. No, they're not paying us this week.
I'll dig up the full thing.
Yeah, Dick Jones. I've no idea.
I've
nothing.
I've got nothing on this. I give in.
Yep.
I'm out.
My name is rather hilarious and quite phallic. It is Dick Seaman, who I've never heard of.
Amazing.
Oh,
I'm scared to Google this, but also I have to Google this.
try using Richard instead. That might.
Yeah, I was just going to say
David
Richard.
Richard
or
John
Dickie
BT Seaman. There he is.
BT Seaman.
BT Seaman, yes.
Doesn't that usually end up
Dick
as a sock?
BT Seaman. Christ.
I mean, that'd be great if somewhere it's been written as BT Dick Seaman.
No. Dick John BT Seaman.
That sounds
Wow.
like the ramblings of a man who's had a very good evening. Dick John B.T. Seaman.
Bloody hell,
or a really bad breakup.
bloody hell,
Yeah.
Tom. That was that was a hard one.
Yes, the
Slash
Sheffield challenge.
/ 4 wheels. Oh bloody hell! How do you send a shunt in after all that?
you can tweet me in a private message at a total shunt. You can send me a PM on Instagram at a total shunt, and that's it. Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. And still could do with a few for the backup list for the just in case weeks, and you can email those 3legs4wheels@gmail.com. You can always use that if you want to send something to us that's a bit too long for a Twitter message. You can get hold of us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 3legs4wheels, and individually we are
At Sean Cowper.
At Flood21.
and at Pablo100. If you want more of our wafflings, go to patreon.com/3legs4wheels, and you can sign up to donate anything from... Now, it's changed. It used to be $1 up. Now you can actually donate in pounds and euros as well. So it's $1 or equivalent up. And there's an extra show that you get, and you get the show's advert free. You get the podcast a little bit earlier as well. And there's an extra sort of Patreon community that we're putting together through Discord. But if you can join in with Discord generally there. If you go to Discord, sign up for an account and look for 3legs4wheels, you'll be able to find us on that.
Yeah.
All our iRacing stuff's on there, and F1 2020 leagues as well. We're looking to get 3 started up. If anybody wants to be in charge of the leagues, because we haven't got time to do it ourselves, so we're looking for race directors for PS4, Xbox, and PC. Drop us a line, get in touch, and we'll get things kicked off, because there's a few people who want to start doing league racing on the F1 game. And there's a load of us on iRacing as well, every Sunday night, 8 o'clock. Right, I think I've got all the adverts out of the way this time.
Good.
I think that about does it for this week. We will be back next week with just a review and no preview and no predictions, because it's just the Spanish Grand Prix, and then we got a week off.
What are we going to talk about?
The upcoming Indy 500.
That'll do, I suppose.
Because that's a week on Sunday. So if you want to listen to Lee ramble on about Alonso, well, just listen to us every week. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.